Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of tips and troubleshooting for your starter, because I know some of you have had some questions, and then this is just what I have found has worked for our clients and for myself over the past few years of making sourdough. So when you get your jar, you'll have 100 grams in there. As soon as you receive your sourdough, it's going to be hungry, so you're going to want to feed it as soon as you can. If you can't feed it right away, I recommend putting it in the refrigerator with the lid on. As soon as you can feed it, you're going to want to feed it with 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water, and then you're going to take the lid off. You're going to give it a really good stir and then leave it out on the countertop for, I would say, anywhere between 5 to 9 hours, depending on the humidity and the temperature of your climate and your house. So you're not going to want to put it in the fridge until it has reached peak. Okay, so another thing, if you're going on vacation and say you're going to be gone for a while, I would at least feed it the day before you leave, let it peak, and then you could put it back in the fridge with the lid on and then feed it when you get home. I believe the longest I was away was about 21 days, and so I just made sure to feed it as soon as I got home. It did take me about 2 times of feeding, like 2 days in a row, to get it back to being super bubbly, but it wasn't dead. It just took a little bit of time to bring it back to full fermentation. Okay, another suggestion, if your house or if your climate is really dry and cool, I recommend putting it in a warm place. Sometimes if it gets really cool in the winter here, I like to put it in the oven and turn the oven light on. Please do not turn your oven on, because it heats up way too much. It can dry out the top portion. You're at risk of drying it out and ruining your starter. So the oven light should be warm enough. When I was up north, I put it in the laundry room with the dryer going, and that seemed to be a really good place. You know, with some nice humidity to keep the starter warm. About 75-80 degrees is good. Also, as far as feeding your starter, I would go ahead and mark where you started, or put a rubber band around it to see how much the starter is doubling or tripling or whatever, just to keep track of your progress. You can also, instead of putting it in the oven, you could put it in on a warming plate, and I'll be putting a link below so that you can see what kind of warming plate we recommend. Also, I just have this bigger jar out just to show you, because this is what I use. I can also give this link to you below. I really like the wide mouth. It just makes it easy for feeding. And sometimes I would make like 2 loaves at a time. And so if you're making 2 loaves at a time, you're usually using about 200 grams to start with instead of 100. So I just really like the size of this jar, and you're not at risk so much of overflowing as you are with a smaller mason jar. Okay, next, feeding your sourdough. What kind of flour? So in the past, I've used several different kinds. I've used the King Arthur's organic unbleached flour, just the regular all-purpose flour. I don't recommend bread flour. The King Arthur made a really nice sourdough. It turned out really well. But the reason I stopped using that is because it had glyphosate in it. They couldn't really give a straight answer if their crops was sprayed with glyphosate, and that is something that just basically destroys the lining of your intestines, causing leaky gut. So then I switched to using a 00 flour imported from Italy. I really liked using that. That was very fine, lightweight flour. And then now I'm using Einkorn all-purpose flour, which is also imported from Italy, free of glyphosate. It is not gluten-free, something to keep in mind. However, it is lower in gluten, so it's not going to be as puffy or rise as much as like the King Arthur all-purpose flour, because that is very full of gluten and can be difficult for your body to digest. So if you have gluten sensitivities, you could try Einkorn. I know some people have better luck with it. It's easier for me. I tend to stay away from a lot of flours and only use imported Italian pasta and things, because I found that my body is able to break that down a lot better, and I don't have the bloating that I have. But it is not, the Einkorn is not gluten-free. Okay, so a few things on troubleshooting. If your starter is not rising after a few hours, don't worry. So you might need to feed it a few times, because we aren't sure like what temperature it's going. I know we go through all over the US to you guys. So a couple things I would keep in mind. It's not dead. It might just need a couple feedings and a little bit of patience. So once you get it, feed it with your 100 grams flour, 100 grams water, leave it out 5 to 7 hours, then you can put it back in the fridge, and then you can feed it again the next day. It will eventually come back. You could try feeding it with rye flour. Rye flour is really good for some reason at making the, like feeding the fermentation process. So sometimes I like to throw a little bit of rye flour in there too. So it doesn't have to be exactly 100 grams. You could do like 50 grams of your regular flour and 50 grams of the rye to equal 100. Sometimes you'll get like a thickened layer on the top surface of your sourdough. That's okay. That just means the top layer has dried out. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with the starter. You can just peel that off and throw it in the garbage. You could mix it in, but it's not going to hurt your starter at all. If your starter hasn't risen after 24 hours and you fed it a few times, what I'd recommend is taking out 20 grams of the starter from the first batch, place it into a new jar, and then refeeding it with 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. If this still doesn't rise, repeat 2 more times. You might just have to wait a little bit longer. Try the troubleshooting tips with keeping it in a warmer location. And just have some patience. It will come around. The starter has been around for a very long time. I thought I killed it at one point, and it's still here. So it's really difficult to kill. One thing to keep in mind, if you ever see any orange or pink streaking on the top, that means the starter has gone bad. And then you're going to need to just discard and get a new batch. If you have any gray, that's okay. That's just like the fermentation liquid in there, and it that usually means it needs to be fed. So gray is okay, orange and pink, not good. So one last thing to keep in mind, baking is an art and a science, and it did take me a little bit of time to troubleshoot and get it right, and making mistakes. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn, and you will get it. So always feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I wish you happy baking. Thanks.